Okay, in this video I will try my new setup. I will make a brief introductory lecture, I guess, on Hegel's logic, just to see if I can improve the visual aspect of my videos. As you can see, I bought a shirt and a tie. I have a whole setup, a board, a blank slate. It cost me broadly 1,000 euros, and if I wanted to make a joke, I would say that happy were the days when teaching philosophy only cost me 1,000 euros. So I will illustrate the logic of being very briefly to make things more intelligible. I have made detailed videos, but they haven't had a lot of success, so I try a new method. Let us assume that this is the beginning of logic. This is pure being. This is an image of pure being. But as you can see, there is nothing on the blank slate. There's nothing on it, so it's pure nothing actually. So being and nothing are identical. Both have in common that they are nothing, but they are nothing. So they are nothing and they are the opposite of themselves because they are being nonetheless, because being is being and nothing is nothing. So there's already a contradiction at the root of everything, I guess. So because being and nothing are identical but nonetheless different, there's a contradiction which produces becoming, the unity of being and nothing. But becoming is becoming, but because it is becoming, it is not being, so it is not, it becomes. So it is the opposite of itself. It is moved by an inner contradiction that becoming is trying to solve, and that's why becoming produces a result. It doesn't remain becoming because it is the unity of being and nothing, so it is contradictory, so it has to produce a result eventually, and the result of becoming is what the German call Dasein. That's an illustration of Dasein. Dasein is being with negation, so to speak, with Nichtsein. So we have Dasein and Nichtsein, but actually Nichtsein is Dasein also. So Dasein ist Nichtsein, and Dasein is the Nichtsein of Nichtsein. So it is the opposite of itself. So it's contradictory. And this line that I've drawn is a Bestimmtheit. It is what limits, so to speak, being, or Dasein rather. So there's a distinction. And here we have something. Dasein determines itself more precisely. So we have something and something else. Something and something else. As you can see, they are not very different from one another. They are basically identical, but nonetheless different. Like being and nothing, like Dasein and an-sich-sein. So there is unity, but difference within unity. And here we have a pair of determinations. We have an-sich and sein-für-anders, which means in itself and being for other, or being for another. And an-sich is the moment of something, or the moment of Dasein, but rather the moment of something with the determination of being, whereas sein-für-anders, which means being other, is the moment of something with the determination of negation, of anders-sein, of nothing, basically. And if I had to illustrate, here we have a very beautiful woman. Okay, the computer has turned off. I have to do it myself. We have a very beautiful woman, and this is real beauty. And if I thought like Plato, I would say, but what is beauty in itself? Just the an-sich. Here we have real beauty, which is sein-für-anders plus an-sich, which is Realität. This is reality, this is something with its negation. But if we think about beauty in itself, we have just to take the moment of an-sich without the external moment, so to speak. That's what Plato did when he thought about the concept of justice, beauty, truth, goodness, etc., etc. So yeah, so we have the determination of something, something else, reality, which is an-sich and sein-für-anders, the unity of both, so the being with negation, so to speak, and something and something else. There is an alternative moving forth from one to the other, because you can suppress something and something else will emerge because they are identical. So that's the bad infinity. You can suppress, it reappears. The real infinity, as Hegel would say, is to find oneself in the other, to re-establish being. So because something and something else have the fundamental characteristic of both being something, so they have the same determination basically, they are one. So the being that we call something, which finds itself in its other, which re-establishes its identity with itself, is what the German call Für-sich-Sein. Für-sich-Sein, which means being for self, namely infinite being, because something doesn't cease to be what it is in its other, because they have the same determination. So we go from the realm of the finite and the limited to the realm of the infinite, and that's the very simple reason why God is infinite, because God is being, and being is only in relation to itself. So being is infinite, and since I am, and God is being, namely I am God, so I am only in relation to myself. This is as simple as that. Being is relation to self. The external world is in relation to me as a thinking entity, so it is infinite. If I had learned this earlier, many problems could have been avoided, but it took me more than 2 decades to figure this out. So yeah, but it's a very basic logical determination that being is infinite. Being is only in relation to itself. So whoever you are in relation to me, because you are, I am, and we are infinite in this sense. So with the moment of Für-sich-Sein, we have unity, because something and something else, the finite and the other finite, which become infinite, have re-established their identity. So we have Für-sich-Sein, which is being for self, which is that which includes the other as a moment of itself within itself. So it is infinite, it is one, it excludes the other from itself, but it is relation to self. So we have a unity with the moment of the negativity within itself, and that's quality according to Hegel. So quality is completed with the concept of unity, but because we have the moment of negation within qualitative being, within unity, the one produces the many. It's a broken half, and then there are 2 and then 3, so the one negates itself, produces the many. That's how the concept of multiplicity emerges out of unity, and that's how the one become the many. But the one and the many have in common that they are one. They are one, but they are many because all the many are one. So there is a continuity. Oh God, fucking damn it! I have to start again. Yeah, I have to adjust, otherwise the screen turns off. I will have to improve that. That's just a test. So the one become the many, but the many, they are all one. And here we already have the emergence of the concept of, first we have repulsion. The one negates itself to produce the many, so this is a negative relation to self. But the many, they are in relation to one another, so they are attracted. So there is repulsion and attraction. And this is how emerges the concept of continuity. Here I will make a square rather than circles. So this is continuous, but because it has the moment of negation and the moment of unity within itself, it is also discrete. This is a continuum, and a continuous square, which is discrete. It has units within itself. So this is continuous and discrete at the same time. And in the sphere of quality, if you change the quality of something, the something ceases to be what it is. If you take off the quality, the being disappears. But here we have discovered the concept of quantity when you can change the quantity, the determinacy of something, and it doesn't change. I can change the determinacy, add more, it remains what it is. That's the concept of quantity, that which can be, whose Bestimmtheit, determinacy, can be changed without changing the being. That's why quantity can be increased or decreased. And with continuity and discretion emerges the concept of quantum, which is limited quantity with a determination. And this produces the concept of number. In the one, we do not have yet the number, but in the many and then the continuity with discretion, we have the concept of a number. A number is one, but it contains the multiplicity within itself. If I say 17, it's one number with 17 units within itself. That's how the concept of number emerges. Then, quantum is limited quantity, and it is, if we take the moment of the unity, we have the concept of intensity, and if we take the moment of multiplicity, we have the concept of extension. So what is intense is what is within itself in the moment of unity. What is extended is what goes out of itself in the moment of multiplicity. And profound thoughts, which are also elevated thoughts. What is profound is elevated, and that's a profound thought. Eventually will become extended. That's why Hegel's philosophy will become famous, because it's very profound, actually. So it has to be widespread eventually. Yeah. And here emerges the concept of a degree, which is kind of intensive quantum. A degree is a measure. When we say the grade or the degree, we mean the measure, namely a quantity which is qualitatively determined. And I will just check that the video doesn't turn off. The quantity, as I've shown briefly, is that which can always go out of itself. You can always increase the quantity of something indefinitely or infinitely. In time, you can always go further back in time or further forward, or in space, you can always imagine galaxies further away, etc., etc., or in mathematics, you can increase infinitely a number. But this going out of itself, which is driven by the negative, this exteriorization of itself, is the quality of quantity. This is what determines quantity. What is quantity? It is that which can be increased or decreased and always go out of itself. So quantity is now qualitatively determined. So we had, that's a return into the moment of quality. We had quality, quantity, and now we have measure, which is the return of quantity into the first moment, but with the mediation of the second moment, which produces the third moment. I simplify. So that's how measure comes out of being, so to speak. And everything has its measure because everything is qualitatively determined, but also quantitatively determined. And if you change the measure of something, the thing doesn't change. But there comes a moment, a logical moment, that when the indifferent quantitative change produces a qualitative change, and that's when the measure changes. Very hot water is quantitatively determined. Boiling water is no longer water, it's vapor. Very cold water is quantitatively determined. Ice is no longer very cold water, it is ice. It has qualitatively changed. Yeah, and now I will illustrate with two examples that I've already made in other videos, but maybe it will be more intelligible if I draw the picture. We have, let us assume we have a field and a forest. That's the example taken by Hegel. They are qualitatively different. What is this? If I had to qualify, we have to predicate being. This is a forest. Actually, this is not a forest. This is a terrible drawing of a forest, but let us use our imagination. What is this? This is a field. If you increase the quantity of the field, the being doesn't change. You have a larger field, a more extended field, but this is still a field. So that's why quantity can be indifferently changed. But here, if you cut off the trees, the quality changes. The forest has ceased to be what it was. It's no longer a forest, it's now a field. If you cut off the trunk and replace with the bare soil, it is a field. So by losing its quality, the forest has ceased to be, and the field has grown bigger. It has increased quantitatively, but that's not the proper thing to do. You should rather have planted trees on the field because it's good for the planet, and now instead of having a field, you have a larger forest. That's the illustration. And now I will make a final illustration of the concept of measure. I really simplify. I take a very simplified illustration of the logic of the encyclopedia, which is already a simplified version compared to the Wissenschaft der Logik. Now, in the realm of measure, let us say that these rounds represent 100 inhabitants or 100 houses. So here we have 300 inhabitants. That's a village. Let us assume that these larger rounds represent 1,000 inhabitants or 1,000 houses. One could say that with 3,000 inhabitants or 3,000 houses, it's no longer a village, it might be a town. So if you go from 300 to 400, it's still a village. 500, it's still a village. But if you keep adding 100, 100, 100, there comes a moment when the village, by indifferently changing its quantity, will turn into a town. When? That depends on the culture, the administrative aspects, the vocabulary, the terminology, but there comes a moment when the village, if it keeps getting larger, will become a town. And then, let us say that these are 1 million inhabitants. This is a city of 3 million inhabitants, you understand that if you go from 3,000 to 4,000, it's still a town. But there comes a moment, which is a logical moment, but that which in ordinary consciousness we call administrative or cultural or economic, whatever the size of a town, a village, a small city, a large city, a big city, depends on the determinations of the country. But let us assume that if you keep increasing the quantity of a town, eventually at some moment it will become a city. That's just to illustrate the concept of measure. So yeah, hopefully it's clearer with these illustrations. I will publish the video and I will see what people think. I can of course still improve, but yeah, that was a test.